Hello, I am Rudy Rivera. To you and my friends all over the world, welcome to my YouTube channel, Conversations with Rudy Rivera. Please click subscribe and you will have access to many, many more interesting interviews with interesting guests on interesting topics. Don't forget, subscribe. I will see you later. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome. Good morning, good night, wherever you are. It's some time of the day somewhere. I am thrilled today to have as my special guest, my new friend and somebody that I admire in such a short period of time that I've known her, is Monica Moore. Monica is the guru of how to communicate. I heard her presentation at another event and I said, I just have to have her on my show. Thank you, Monica, for coming. Monica, we're streaming live on LinkedIn. We're streaming to our Zoom audience, and it's going to be on YouTube. Monica, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming.
Excellent. And kia ora from Aotearoa, New Zealand. And it's a good afternoon for me. And Rudy, I'm so excited to be here with you today. And yes, we became very good friends very quickly, and that's a wonderful synergy, and I'm certainly grateful for it, and I'm sure that'll go out to our audience viewing today. I'm just going to put onto the LinkedIn Live, for some people may have got the incorrect link, so I'm just doing a reminder. We can't be good at everything, and technology is something that I sometimes make the odd slip up with, but awesome today to talk to you about communication excellence, how you can take your words and change them so that you're going to get what you want out of your life, out of your words.
Well, tell us, before we get into the thick of it, as we say in the US, what it is you do and how you got to this point. You're a motivational speaker, you're a coach, you're an author, you've written musical plays, and you're just theater all the way around.
Well, it's been a journey. I've always loved theatre. I used to write plays, and I'm the eldest sibling in my family, so I enforced that my younger siblings all had to be in my plays and shows when we lived on our farm. And then as I got older, I just had a real love for it, and I was very involved in theatre, so I wrote and sold musicals for many years. Then I was unwell for a period of time, and I've fallen into becoming a keynote speaker, and I absolutely love it. It's my favorite of all the past ones.
It is a lot of fun. I mean, I enjoy being in front of a crowd. I enjoy, the people. I enjoy the energy, the synergy. That's to me what's the best part about being a motivational speaker. I also love doing the talk show circuit. If I couldn't be a lawyer, what I would be is a talk show host, like the old I don't know who you have in New Zealand, but in the US, we had Johnny Carson and Mike Douglas and Merv Griffin, those guys. Well, Monica, you and I, when we talked before, really talked a lot about wearing two shoes, right? Yes. Communication is like wearing two shoes.
It sure is.
One is the subject and one is how you communicate. And we're going to focus today on really why your words are so important. Tell us why they are so important, and go into more about the shoe analogy.
So if you've got on a pair of shoes and they look great and people will say, gosh, I like your shoes, they look wonderful. But if you've only got one shoe on and you've got 2 feet, people are going to look at the missing shoe. So when you're speaking, if you've got a great message, but you're not delivering it well, that's like having a missing shoe. And nobody's going to really engage with the content because they're too busy looking at why you don't have that other shoe on. So with your words, it's not just the content and the words themselves, but how you deliver them. And I learned a lot as a professional theatre director. I used to love traveling around the country directing theatre shows, and I saw that these wonderful scripts, but of course the acting, the way that you deliver the words, is everything to engage. And working as a speaker, in fact working anywhere in life, because your words and the way you deliver them represent who you are. That's why it's called commune, between two people or more occasion.
Well, but you go further, like more than other people I've known, is you refer to proactive communication.
Yes.
And you say it reduces conflict and improves productivity. Tell us how that happens.
Well, proactive communication is literally speaking in solutions for solutions. So for example, if people are worried or caught up or in a problem instead of on a problem, they're going to talk about all the details of the problem, but they're not proactively finding a way to find a solution.
As
And
a
even
manager would say, don't tell me about the problem, come with me with a solution.
absolutely. And I used to, when I was working in education and in management, I would say, look, you're welcome to come and share a problem, but bring two solutions with you. So just simply finding a way through a problem. And we spend a lot of time using lots of words describing, explaining, expressing a problem rather than looking at a solution. And that does sound very obvious, but sometimes we get really stuck in problems rather than on a problem. When you're on a problem, you're above it, you're on it, you've got a helicopter view, you've got that umbrella view, and you're looking on that problem. How can I solve this? Now, for a long time, I lived in what I like to call the groan zone. And I like to complain. And what I was doing is literally disabling my power by talking about everything that was wrong. This isn't wrong. This isn't right. This isn't going to work. This isn't. And then I progressed from that groan zone into what I call the known zone, where I looked at, and I've got a set of pops, lots of pops, the purpose of possibility. You know, to you, Rudy, what do you think that word possibility means?
It means options. It means solutions. It means different scenarios.
Correct. Well done. It also means, when I talk about pops, one of my other pops is position of perspective. And so often people can be stuck in that one perspective. And often they'll say, in my opinion. And when it's an opinion, often it becomes quite stable and this is it. This is the one way. But if you're talking about perspective, you get to see that there are other options, as you said. So what's your position of perspective on the power of language? And people will have a response. Is there another way we can present this information? Is there another way of looking at the situation? It's wonderful for problem solving, but also you can reduce your words into a far more positive, short, because we do quite often say too many words. As we were saying before, and you and I have quite often talked about getting to the point. What's the umbrella statement? Because many people use what I like to call redundant words. If you took out all the redundant words, the words that actually had no meaning, for example, people might say, oh, well, I mean, and, you know, and I understand, and you know what I mean, but I don't. So if you take those away and find clarity just by expressing or explaining exactly what your point is. And you'll find a lot of people use a lot of words and they don't even have a point.
That's the problem, because they dance around. And to me, that's first of all, one of my pet peeves is when somebody says, in my opinion. I know it's your opinion because you're saying it. So you don't need to emphasize that. The second thing I try to do is I ask what they think first. So they're not clouded by my opinion. That means I bring them in. But an issue I've had, and I can say this because some of the people I know on this panel or our guests are from Mexico, is I had a hard time training my Mexican lawyers. Just get to the point. Tell me what happened yesterday. Don't tell me about the creation of the sky. Don't tell me about War and Peace. Just get to the point. If I have questions, I will ask you. Okay. And so I think that's where the communication begins, when you're to the point. So less is more, right?
Absolutely. And people often they'll assume that that they really want to listen to every single detail. And I call it synthesizing. So taking all that information, synthesize it down or filter it down into your main point.
My old partner, who was 30 years older than me, said to me, the quality of a good lawyer is taking a complex case and make it simple.
Absolutely. And that is a skill in itself, because there are so many words we can use, and by the time we've thrown in our redundant words and our sayings, it can often show insecurity, it can show anxiety, it can show that you're really not sure what you're talking about and that you're nervous. So less is always more. And a great idea to get started with is to think about the pause. So just take a minute in between with what you're saying. For example, and in that moment, here I was wondering, what will I do next? Now that's creating an emotive connection, because we all have those moments of wondering or worrying, and you can identify with it. And then I realized that here I was, well educated, with a job and a business, a wonderful life, but I had no idea how to make decisions for me and about me. So it's very clear, there's no extra words, there's an emotive story behind it, and then I make my point. So choosing a little story and a little one that people can identify with is going to help tell your story as well.
And being indirect and talking about everything under the sun except the point turns somebody off.
Absolutely.
And you can, and two things can happen. Either they get the impression you don't really know what you're talking about and you're just trying to use filler.
Yes.
Or two, you're being very presumptive. I had a partner who was a lawyer, pharmacist, had a master's degree. And he would couch an answer with, well, I have a master's degree in this and I have a pharmacy degree. I said, why do you have to say that every time? And in his mind, he wasn't being arrogant. He was, well, I just want them to know that I really know what I'm talking about. Henry, just say it. If they question your credentials, you can say, I'm a pharmacist and I've got a master's in this, and this is what I base it on, right? So take that to a board meeting, okay? So your president says, what's going to be the increase in profit for the next quarter, right? Simple question. You'd be surprised how many answers you get. The answer is 10%. But oftentimes what happens is, well, we had this and we had that, and there's these elements that come on, and they're looking, okay, so what's the answer? What's the number? And that's the thing that people have a hard time capturing.
Oh, absolutely. And when people are doing that, I totally agree with you. It's because they're unsure and they want to justify, but they asked for that. Look, I think it's going to be 14.2%. Oh, why do you say that? And you don't have to go, oh, well, because if somebody did know, you wouldn't be telling them again. So that can go out the door. Just irritating, and they dilute your message.
You know what I do? I count them. When I'm listening to somebody who says, so, I lose track of what they're saying, and I start counting how many so's or how many uhums. So I lose totally what they're saying.
Well, I want to burst into that song. So a needle pulling thread.
Right.
Yeah, and that it's very, very distracting from the point. So when you were speaking before about the guy with the pharmacy degree and the master's degree, if you want to claim your power and position yourself as an expert, you can say, well, one of the discoveries I had when I was doing my master's is that, and make it very clear point. So you can establish yourself as part of your story. But if you're saying, and I've got a master's and I've got a PhD and I've got a whole lot of letters of the alphabet with different numbers and full stops after my name, then it's boring. But if you drop it in to the conversation as part of where you sourced your information from, it's a whole different story. So look, I remember when I was doing my master's, my lecturer said this, or as part of my thesis in my master's, I researched this and got it validated. So that's a street you could be going down. I see we've got some comments in the...
We got a question. Well, hello, good morning from India. Good afternoon. So I'm glad we have people from all over the world. That's the
Marvelous.
beauty of Zoom, right? The beauty of Zoom. Ronald Reagan, although an excellent speaker, famously began every sentence with "well." Now, to me, that was an effective tactic because when he started with "well," you know something was coming. And when he spoke, it was almost like the fireside chat. He was in a chair, he was relaxed, so you felt relaxed, and he just went on smoothly. I think he was one of the best communicators.
Well, that's because
Well,
it's the way that he used it. So having said all of that about the redundant words, if that's part of who he is, and we know that well follows a profound statement, then everybody's going to brace themselves. And that's from the pattern of how you construct your talk or what you're going to say. And that was his trademark. Well. There's a woman on TikTok. I like studying the language of people on TikTok. And she always starts with, "You're just not going to believe what happened today." And then that's going to already, people have got the lean in. You do have to be careful, though, if it's, "You're not going to believe what happened today," and then it's a long story with something very believable on the end of it. It has to be something extraordinary.
well,
So
almost like it could be comical too, like the
yeah.
Rosanna Dana on Saturday Night Live. She used to say, "Well, it's always something or something." And Walter Cronkite used to say, "That's the way it was today." That was
Yes.
that was a stock phrase that identified them. So that's
Yes.
different from having a crutch. That I think Reagan's communication was intentional. Well was
Yes.
almost his way of saying welcome, right? Somebody wrote, "I am guilty of using so's a lot in my written communication."
It is because it's a thread from linking one idea to the next. Was that in written or verbal communication?
Written
Is that written?
communication.
So written is just in goes a comma or a full stop, or you call it a period. We call it a full stop in New Zealand. So that's where you're going to end your idea.
Well,
So
the
if you're
pause.
linking,
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
if you're linking your ideas together, if you're speaking, so what this means for you is that when you use less words, you're going to sound more powerful. So this means that people will take you more seriously. So linking of ideas, but if it's so, it depends on the way, again, using your voice, because it's a beautiful instrument. Here in New Zealand, we tend to speak on one note, so it can sound all the time. And the other thing that we do is that we go up on the end of our sentences, when really it should go the other way. So you start up here and you end with your main point by dropping your voice down. And hello, everybody. It's great to see you all today. So you're giving yourself a sense of authority. If you do it the other way around, hello, it's great to see you all today. It has quite a different meaning. So generally, and all rules are made to be broken, is start up high and bring it down to your point. This is what I want you to do. Now, I've exaggerated.
It's not just the words, but it's then not just the words, it's the intonation.
Oh,
so, hello, how are you today?
Totally.
You have to put excitement into some of your words to basically, words are also a reflection of your feelings. But they're empty if you don't put your emotion behind it, right?
Totally. And also it's your energy or your vibe. So if you are really interested in engaging with people, it would be like this, "Hi, Rudy." "Hi, Rudy." That's almost a throwaway, but it's like, "Hi, how are you, Rudy?" And that, like, there's going to be some energy. So, and also it depends who you know, and you're looking pleased to see them. So providing that energy, and we are so unaware of what we're doing because up to about 90% of what we do lives in our subconscious. It's according to Dr. Bruce Lipton, and I'm a big fan of what he has to say about subconscious, as do a lot of researchers. It's can be as much as 90% until you do some self-reflection. And that involves you looking at yourself from the outside in. And of course, we only know ourselves from the inside. So we've got this great idea inside us and we want to deliver it, or we want to tell somebody something, and we've got no idea how that's sounding. It's like most people do not like listening to their own voice, a recording, or looking at their own face on a video either, because they'll say, I had no idea that I moved like that. I didn't know I sounded like that. That's because we only know ourselves internally. And same with our good ideas, because with language, you mimic and copy the people that you are surrounded by when you're young. And as you get older, you start to explore what works best for me. I once worked with somebody that spoke very, very quietly, but had such a commanding presence by being still. This is what we're going to do. Now, right now, we're in this room. We're going to stand up, and without a word, we're going to walk to the next room. Now, because he had such a commanding presence, and he wasn't a great man of any size, but he had a still energy about him that gave people security. He also did not use any redundant words and was an expert at the pause. So if somebody came to him in a crisis, oh, this has happened, that's terrible, I don't know what to do, I need your help, he'd be very calm. Now, this is what's going to happen. So finding your own style, there's no one size fits all, because how boring if we all spoke the same. But there are some general rules that are extremely useful.
And what are those rules? What are those rules?
Well, the first one is know what you're speaking about.
That's a good idea.
Know what you're speaking about and be very connected to it, and be aware of how you're delivering it. As you know, I was speaking in a meeting, and one of the things that I had said was, if you're going out as a keynote speaker, don't start off by talking about who you are and what you do and how excited you are to be there, because everybody does that. If you want to be memorable, go out and say something that's going to rub some sandpaper against people's skins, or give them something to think about. For example, if you came out and said, what if I told you that 80% of the audience has already prejudged me just by the way I walked out? And people will be thinking, oh, gosh, I did that, or I must be in the 20%. So that's got them interested. And when they're interested, they want to know more about you. They might want to know your name. But if I just come out and said, well, good evening, everyone. My name is Monica Moore. What a pleasure it is today. Thank you for that wonderful welcome. And I'm a keynote speaker, and I did this and I did that. And when I was 3, I could ride my trike really fast. And this is what I weighed at birth. All of that it puts people off. They are there. When you're on the stage, you're there. And when you're speaking, you're there generally to serve the other people. Now, there's a big difference between serving the other people and spouting off about what you think.
I noticed in other videos I've seen that you've done that is one of your favorites, but a very effective hook. What if I told you? Because what you do at the very beginning is get them thinking, oh my God, something good is coming.
Yes. Something
good is coming. What is it? I want to hear it.
Yes, and you've got to make sure that what you are going to say on the other end of that, what if I told you? And as a speaker, keynote coach, I often say this is a great starting point until you've found your phrases. So start off with 3 points. What if I told you that 90% of all people avoid conflict? And what if I told you that does not just affect the place where you're experiencing the conflict, whether it's at home, whether it's at work, or on in the supermarket, but it affects every single part of your life. And what if I told you, and by now you'd be standing in the middle of the stage, that the reason why people avoid this conflict is because of unsubstantiated fear. And then they're going, oh, I want to know more. Who is this? Now, I just quickly made that up as an example. But another thing that you can do that's highly effective is if you're going to speak anywhere, you're going to come out, you're going to stand on the stage, you're going to look at everybody, address them with your eyes, stand as tall as you can. And it's not to have height, but to look strong. So to stand as strongly as you can and say nothing and make them think. Just stay that little bit longer with you thinking, she's forgotten what she's going to say. And feeling slightly awkward. And then away you go.
Looking at them, you're setting the stage is what you're doing.
Yes, you're owning the space, you're claiming their attention, and yet you haven't said a word. And another tip that works really well is to, whenever you're walking on the stage, don't talk. You've made your point, then you're moving into something else. Now, if they're interested in that point, when you're moving across to your next point, they're going to follow you with their eyes in anticipation. So by creating some anticipation, they're thinking, oh, what's she going to say next? And then you really have got them focusing and listening. And they're just a couple of strategies that are they're life-changing if you've got a message that you really want people to listen to. So you're going to serve the people. You're not there talking about all the details. You know, when you're producing a keynote speech or if you're delivering some information, usually, and if it's at a board report or in a court of law, there's a lot of background information. Now, when people are giving every detail, it just means they're not sure. They're saying, look at me, I've researched this and I found out all this stuff, but they haven't really got a clear way of delivering their findings because the message gets diluted in all of the details.
You know, that works on the stage, and I think it's very effective. Would you recommend doing that when you're meeting in a board? I mean, how do you make the hook when you're going to a boardroom or you're going to a group of people with you know, your colleagues in a presentation? Do you do the same thing? Would you recommend the same technique?
So if it was at a board meeting, that something that a lot of people don't do sitting around the board table is stand up when they're going to speak. So that's just one physical thing that you could do. If I could have a moment of your time, I'd like to address the chairman about this issue. So you've asked permission, you've stood up physically, you've taken your point, and then you've done that. So that's one way you could do it. Another point is if somebody says, Monica, what's your perspective on this? What do you think? And I'd say, thank you for asking me. I'd like to share a perspective based on some research. Now, I heard Fred over here say this and Mary over here say that. So when you address the names of the board members, you're saying, I'm listening to you. I've taken it in. Now, I believe this. Pause and wait till they're all looking. Or you might be saying, one of the people that has really influenced how I'm thinking now is, and everybody looks hoping you're going to say their name. We love our name.
But I think standing when you do the speech, I think gives people the impression that you've prepared what you're going to say,
yes,
and that you want to address everybody. Because the only way you can look at everybody is to be standing up. You can't do it sitting in the back of the boardroom. I attend a lot of legal conferences where there's usually a panel of people. And what I've noticed is that they become talking heads. Well, this is what I think, and this is what I think, and there's some moderator. So whenever I do a panel like that, we all stand. And everyone's in different parts of the room, and we're passing questions back and forth to each other. And that's how we bring the audience in. We're not on the podium, we're their chairs. We all have microphones. And I find that we get better evaluations on something like that because people felt that, well, God, we brought them in. They're not just sitting. And one of the things I notice about when we do it that way, there are less people looking at their iPhones, their iPads, and their computers.
Oh, those iPads, iPhones, and computers, if you want to have a great meeting, first stand up in a circle, Stand up in a circle, even without notes. I do like to scribble things down, so it makes me feel a little bit more vulnerable. Stand up in a circle and record it. I'm just going to record this so I can remember later, and we'll do the minutes that way. So people now know they're being recorded. They now know it's being used for the minutes. They're going to think harder about what they're going to say. And they're going to be more clear. And at the next meeting, you'll find that there'll be a lot more researched, and it's going to cut down all the extra, well, I think this and I think that, and maybe this and perhaps that, rather than having a direct response. And of course, the other thing is understanding your communication style, because we've all got a predominant one. And I like to use the acronym STYLE, STYLE. So the S is supporter, and you need a supporter. So if you're in a team working together, somebody's got to be the person that if somebody has a good idea, they'll go, oh, yes, I'll make the placards. I'll go and order the lime green lycra outfits for us to wear. Yes, yes, yes. They'll support. And you need that because people need to feel confident in sharing an idea.
So you have to share your enthusiasm when you're getting the idea. That's part of the overall, communication package. Somebody asked me for advice once recently, a young man, and he says, can you mentor me? And I've known this person for some time, and I said, look, show people how smart you are. Don't tell them how smart you are.
Oh, never tell them. As soon as you're telling them.
Yeah, so lose all the words, speak only when you have something important to say. And what I used to get told when I was a young boy is, God gave you 2 ears and a mouth. Use your ears more.
Twice as much as you speak. That's a great teaching tool that actually we haven't talked about this, but I've used that for years. You should always speak half as much as you listen. And are you listening to listen, or are you listening to respond?
That's a big issue, because people are listening to respond. They don't get everything. They just are thinking of what they're going to say. They lose track of what the other person is saying. That happens so often.
Correct. It absolutely does. And there's so many wonderful books about active listening now and figuring it out. But also, the poor listener needs something great to listen to. So if there's, and so, and I mean, and and you could, it could be this, and I suppose, and maybe, and perhaps, that gets very frustrating for the listener. So you've got to honor the time that the listener's given you and made sure that you're not wasting that time, and that you're not just blah, blah, blahing on about something because you're not sure of the point. But it's okay to say, can I talk this through? I'm going to throw my thoughts out. I'm going to put them out there and see what lands. And I love that. I heard this, I think it's an American saying, I'm going to pick up what I pick up what you're putting down. I think that's really great, that I'm understanding what you're saying. I'm picking up what you're putting down, or I'm not picking up what you're putting down. So
I want to make sure I understand you.
Yes.
And
yes.
that shows that you're listening attentively, and so you're what they're saying is important enough that you want to make sure that you have it right, and so Absolutely. Hence the dialogue begins, the trust and the confidence begins with that.
Yes, and you can also, if you're not sure, you can say, so this is what I'm hearing. You meant something, and you think I know something. And you think perhaps something and maybe something, but to be honest, I'm not entirely sure what it is you want me to understand. And then you're being respectful, but you're sharing your vulnerability. Look, I don't know what you're talking about. Can you please have some clarity? Can we please be
right? You don't say it makes no sense to me. What you're saying makes no sense. That's insulting, right?
Yes, it is. It is. But if you say, so this is what I'm hearing. You've said that you mean something and you know something, and you're giving me, like, I may have this wrong, that you're talking about possibilities, but I'm not sure what your outcome is that you want me to understand. And then just wait. Let them reflect. Do you need more time? Do you want to come back? I know, look, quite often there's a context around what people are wanting to deliver, and you need a little bit of background information at times. And mostly it's that emotive connection is making sure that you're respectful and understand. I find sometimes that if you're wanting something to change in a conversation with somebody that needs to change what they're doing, is being self-deprecating. Look, for many years I doubted myself and I often used redundant words and people really couldn't understand what I was saying. So one thing I've learned is just to wait, formulate your sentence or your statement, and then share it. I don't mind waiting. Just a little bit of self-deprecating, not too much.
Well, the pause is pretty powerful. It's powerful because it gives you an opportunity to think. And you're not going stream of consciousness from one to the other, and so. Now, something I learned recently in these last few years from some of my Mexican friends, so I will say, did you understand me? Well, that can be insulting.
Yes.
Perhaps what you say is, am I making myself clear? So you're taking the blame for them not understanding.
Yes. So always look, another thing is, I'm just checking for meaning. Well, I'm just checking that I've delivered this message. So please do ask anything that you're not sure of. So are you saying we have to completely change this office around by tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock? No, thank you for asking that question. And I'm sorry if I've conveyed it that way. No, it needs to be done by 9:05. You have an extra 5 minutes or whatever it is. So you're seeking clarity is showing that you respecting what the other person is saying. You want to understand their message. That's just another way of just asking, just open to questions. And as for you asking me about rules, well, rules, there's always exceptions to rules, but with proactive communication, the big picture is that your intent is to be solution-based. Often having a story makes the emotive connection, and from that you can make your point. If you want to position yourself as a person of expertise, instead of saying, well, I'm an international attorney and litigator and I'm an expert in arbitration and I'm a professor, you might say, when I was the guest professor at Harvard University recently, I was asked this. So you're just setting the picture of where you were when you got the information. So that's often a good way to position yourself as an expert.
Well, you also said communication avoids conflict. And I think one of the ways it avoids conflict is because you can insult people when you really don't mean to if you're not careful about what you say. But also I find when you're going into a hostile environment, the best thing to do is find commonality first and then focus on the disagreement. So in line with your solution-based, line of thinking, which I'm totally in sync with, is start on the positive end. And
I don't know if you listen to my videos, but I've got a tool. It's just a little template, and it's called cup, drinking from the cup of commonality. So when you have a cup of coffee, you're both sipping, and that comes right back to when you were babies and you were drinking, and we like doing that. It's a comfort. It's in our DNA. We remember it right from when we were tiny. So we're drinking together. So we drink from the cup of commonality. And look, sometimes you're going to say things that somebody else doesn't like, but if you deliver it well enough, you can say it respectfully. So for example, you start off the C of cup, it's an acronym, is something that we have in common. Rudy, we both want this to happen. Now, I understand that you want me to do X, Y, and Z, and you understand that I'm not able to do that because of A, B, C. So let's make a plan. So what you're doing is saying, we both want this outcome. Now, so Rudy, we would love to have you working with our company. But you understand that 9 a.m. are our meeting times every morning. And you understand that. So I understand that you can't get to work till 11:35 a.m. at the least, at the earliest every morning, and you understand I need you here at 9 a.m. So let's make a plan. And then you might say, oh, wow, I was up all night. I'm addicted to TikTok and I need to be watching and I'm doing this, or the traffic's bad, or that this, and every day there's an excuse. So you go back and go, Rudy, we both want you to be working in this company. Now, I understand that you've had these problems and this problem and that problem, and name them. So it's quite long. And you understand I need you here at 9 a.m. because everybody else is here. We all live in the same city. We're all in the same traffic. We all are having same but different issues. So let's make a plan. What do you know about my life and what's going on? And I'm doing my best. And I'm the most qualified person in this law firm, blah, blah, blah. Come back again. Rudy, we both want you working at this law firm. Now, I understand that X, Y, Z, blah, 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 you're the most qualified. And you understand you need to be here at 9 a.m. because of this reason, this reason, this reason. Let's make a plan. And you'll find that if you stick to that very small formula, after a period of time, the other person will join it, because we're creatures of familiarity and they learn the pattern. And then from that, you negotiate a solution, or Rudy leaves, which would be a tragedy.
We have a question from the Q&A. That says, Monica, does the excessive use of social networks has become an obstacle to the excellence in communication?
And face-to-face communication, yes, it does. And people, and while it's wonderful, it's a wonderful tool. Like any tool, though, you need to know how to use it. Some people now hide behind some filters. Some people all the time are onto iMovie, correcting what they're saying. So when they get out on and interact with people in real life, they're anxious because they're unsure of themselves, because it's like the glossy magazines with the models who are all photoshopped. We tend to do that to ourselves. Well, not I, because I tried a filter the other day and I ended up with these two big eyes that look like a frog. And I thought, well, I'm not going to do that again. That was a lesson. But yes, absolutely. I totally agree with that social media is becoming an issue. And we know that in education as well, that young people growing up with social media have lost the art of conversation face to face. They have lost that wonderful synergy and connection of live people in the same room. In fact, you look at adults at meetings and they're sitting and they pull this up and that's their phone and it's near them and they're looking at it and they're looking up. Or took one moment. So I always ask that the phones go away.
Well, and by the way, I am looking around only because I have 3 monitors making sure that everything is functioning. So I'm not looking at my Facebook. I'm not looking at this. I just make sure everything goes well. But I agree with you. I think we've lost the art of communication. There are a couple of things that really irritate me sometimes. For example, nobody puts a phone number in their email anymore. So I have to say, call me. And when I start working with somebody, I'll call them. I say, we're going to work together. I want to say hello. How are you? I want to get to know you. We're going to work on this project. I need to make a connection with that person, but we're too often hiding behind the emails, hiding behind this anonymous person. I was very suspicious of some transaction where the people who wanted us to do something would never get on video. They were always on the phone, and everyone else, and that was like a big red flag for me. But
yes, because that's an option that's available, and it is wonderful to be able to get onto Zoom or whatever you use to have that connection. It's wonderful, and you meet people from all around the world. But when that becomes your skill at the mercy of the people that you could communicate in the live room, then it is a problem. And I'm seeing with young people, particularly in lockdown, when they were locked down during COVID, that they become very anxious. They lost their routines and they really lost their way with communicating with people. And many years ago, I wrote a stage musical called High School Blues, and it came out the year later. High School Musical came out, so it was like, oh, I don't have the Disney money to promote this. But part of it was, and it was in a school, and it had some teachers, and it was during, I think you call it recess, we call it morning tea or lunch, and it was about students sitting there in a line beside their friends, but they're all on their phones, and some of them are actually texting somebody 2 people down from them. And that actually became a reality, which shocked me. And so I don't know.
Seen it in universities. I seen it in universities. So I went to, I was at Harvard with one of the professors, and me and some other people and I always get that confused, right? We're doing a presentation. There were students there, and they all had their laptops out. And I said to the professor, you know, it's amazing. I had a pen and paper, and that's how I took notes. She said, they're not taking notes. They're sending text messages and on the internet. And so they're not really paying attention. And that's insulting to the speaker, right? But then it's the speaker's fault if he can't or she cannot captivate the interest, because people are going to go right back to their phones and iPads if you don't captivate them.
Yes, but sometimes to this day, they're not even getting the opportunity because of the impact of dopamine on the brain, and screens give you that fix, and you can flip in and out. You can go from 4 or 5 different social medias. You can send somebody an email, you can send a message, you can WhatsApp them in a very short period of time. So the first thing to do, that anybody in the lecturing in the university, is to ask, lids down. Today, you're going to write down with pen and paper, the main key ideas. So to do that, you need to be listening. There's also going to be some activities that involve you just sharing your thoughts on what I've just said. So that then makes them think, oh, now this is going to help me understand more about you. And when I'm marking your paper, I will be thinking about that. So whether you are thinking about it or not, it gives the people the motivation to get back to listening in a room.
I insist on anybody that I'm paying in any type of activity, you know, the contractors, vendors, whatever, that they be on camera. Because it creates a disjointed meeting when some people are on camera and others aren't. You can't interact. And we do have a question from Fred, and I happen to know Fred really well. And I know Fred hates Zoom, okay? So please comment on the importance of nonverbal communication and how it is affected by use of online tools like Zoom.
Well, the first one is eye contact. People are struggling more and more with eye contact because on Zoom, so I'm looking at Rudy now, but really to look at Rudy, I need to look up at the camera so that Rudy can see that my eyes are looking at his eyes. So you're right, it's very different, and it can be very disconcerting. Very disconcerting. So then when you get into real life, it's important to address somebody. You know, we have a lovely saying over here, we are all eye to eye. Nobody is better than you, and you'll know better than anybody else. So meeting somebody eye to eye. And again, there's the whole cultural situation where some people believe that to show respect, your eyes are downcast. So it's being aware of that as well. But usually one of the most intimate things you do in a conversation is to share your eyes, because it's showing your compassion. Your eyes are the window to your heart. It's showing what you're thinking. And it's acknowledging. And there's a wonderful saying. It's called Ubuntu, and it's African. Do you know what this is?
No.
And it's got a lot to do with synergy. There's a wonderful man in Australia I met at a conference last year called Alfred, and we're going to be having some chats about Ubuntu. Ubuntu means I am because you are, and you are because I am. And it's that unseen, unfelt, well, often it is felt, synergy that's created between two people who are connecting through their words, through their eyes, through their body language.
That's almost like existential. I think, therefore I am. You know, it's that type of concept, right?
But it goes bigger, because it's not just because of you, it's because of us. We create the dialogue. It's that synchronized energy, or not. It's very difficult to have synchronized energy with someone if they're not looking at you, if they're giving one-word answers. And then with body language, with what you're saying has to be connected. So if I'm sitting here going, oh, yes, that's right, Rudy, but I've got my arms crossed, my legs crossed, I'm slightly turned away, my body's saying, I'm not interested. And to be able to, face somebody straight on is showing, and whenever you're being open-hearted, so if you're sitting there like this talking to somebody, and look, it's not just that one gesture, it's a cluster of gestures that shows what you're really thinking. And if you want to get a point across with your body language like this, and what did I say before? And what if I told you it's because of, and I said, unsubstantiated fear, and I used my fingers by my mouth to really get my point across.
I notice you use a lot of hand gestures to get your point, and your hand gestures are timed with your pauses, and they're timed with certain words. So what if I told you, right?
Yeah.
And you get into you. What if I told you, and then that, okay? And then you go with this arm, and it's either this or it's either that. That's the body language that adds effect. See, I've been paying attention. I watch your videos.
You are. I think you could get a gold star for that, Rudy. That's excellent. Well done. I was coaching somebody a couple of days ago, and I'm actually going to stand up for this because I am up on a bar stool, but not actually a bar. Just a disclaimer, I'm not in a bar anywhere in my office. So is that she had this fantastic speech, and as she's delivering her speech,
she's making you dizzy. Yeah.
And then after a while, her message was diluted. So one thing, if you're speaking, is pretend you've got concrete in your feet. All movements must be intentional. And if you are going to use whoever this person was talking about, so can be great if you're walking, you can walk.
Mm-hmm.
What this means is, so you're captivating their attention, they're following you. Hurry up and tell us. But what you're doing is building momentum for your main point.
You're dragging them in, and it's got to be really, and if it's a big room, you must then work the room so that you feel that you are talking. Everyone feels, and you really are talking to them and not talking to just a small group of people.
Totally agree. I was emceeing a prize giving at the end of last year, and there was probably between 1,000 and 1,500 people in the room, and everybody is talking. So I got up to the podium, I dropped my voice, I stood really still because some people saw I was standing there, and then we have a wonderful multi 1,000 and 1,500 people in the room. And that's repeating back. No, thank you. So I started off, we have a wonderful Māori greeting here. So I dropped down into my authoritative voice. I looked up and said, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. And so my arms, everything went, and people just looked like, what's she saying? And then I waited till they were quiet. And then I said something else in Māori. And then once I had them, I went into me, and it was like, no matter who you are, no matter how you are, no matter where you're from, you are welcome. And a warm welcome indeed, everyone, to the 2024, and then away I went. So by dropping down into my voice of authority, and sometimes you need to do that in a meeting. So you might pause and say, I'm just going to make a point of order here, that this is getting out of control. And it's just by saying that pulls everybody back. I respectfully ask that you think before you speak, because we have spoken for the last 15 minutes and I don't have one point to record. So bringing that up instead of, would it be okay? So bringing your voice down is hugely effective. Even that quiet man I was speaking about, we need to be quiet. This is dropping it down. The man with the authority that had the quiet voice is just, and to do that, it comes from the bottom. You speak from around where your belly button is, and you feel your muscles working there. And that actually releases some dopamine, serotonin, and some oxytocin. So people in the room feel that you're the person in the position of authority. So if I'd gone up to the podium with 1,500 people and said, oh, hey, excuse me, when you're ready, it'll be, and hello, everybody. So I just was straight into dinner, and they weren't expecting it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Well,
it's the
good
element of
evening,
surprise.
everybody.
Yeah,
When they're not expecting something, they will then, or they
will
know
listen.
in New Zealand, it's just Māori for welcome, welcome, welcome to everybody. So they are quiet. And you don't have to.
Yeah, I have several pet peeves. One of which is people who talk and they're always looking like this. They don't talk to you. They're like all over the place. It's usually a short conversation. Mhm. That's one thing that really just makes me crazy. And I have sometimes say, look me in the eyes, okay? Two is when people put themselves down. And I've seen this with lawyers who feel insecure. They're doing a presentation. They say, oh my God, there's so many people out here who are more qualified than me. I hope I don't embarrass myself. And my thought is, well, then sit down and ask one of them to come up and do the presentation. Because what you're telling me in those few words is that you have nothing to say that's of any relevance.
Correct. But again, I do use some self-deprecation, but I will say I feel honoured to be amongst such well-qualified and experienced people.
But that's different. Though. But you're not saying you're not. You know, you're saying it's great to be among them, and so you're including yourself when you say that.
And thank you for hearing me out. Today, I'm going to share why I am better than you. You're not going to say that, but you're going to say, I'll often say, for many years, my language was very negative. It was self-deprecating. And I realized it was because even though I was loud and theatrical, I didn't feel great about myself. And that's where why Buy the Damn Dress came along. Something happened to me when I was 27, and it was one of those defining aha moments where I realized somebody said something to me and I thought, this is ridiculous. I'm being ridiculous about buying this damn dress. And then I realized,
I'm good enough. I'm smart enough. Like the old Saturday Night Live, the guy that stands in the mirror smiling, I'm good enough. I'm smart enough, and I'm going to have a great day. We have some comments. Cheryl says, I like the use of the voice of authority. And another one in the Q&A that says, a good communicator must know how to manage or manipulate the emotions of his or her audience. And we have a compliment for you too, from Princess. Message from Julie. Monica, you have a wealth of knowledge and communication. Hope we can use our vocal range for confidence. Love your work.
Now, who was that?
It's Princess Nottage. Message from Julie.
A Princess Nottage. She's a dear friend. I actually speak with Princess Nottage, and she really is a princess. Do you know why? Because she said she is. She says she is, and I don't mean a princess that thinks that she is better than everyone else, but she's somebody that has high expectations. She has high expectations of herself, and she therefore, in a very friendly, warm way, expects them of other people, and that's something that I have huge respect for Princess Nottage for.
Well, don't demand any more of anyone else than you would demand of yourself. I mean,
Absolutely.
At that point, things are consistent, and you can appreciate then Princess Nottage's, point of view or her attitude. But when you think you're better than them, that's where you get into an issue. But make them rise to the occasion. One final point before we go. By the way, we're going to shut off on LinkedIn Live, and there are a few people, if they want to talk informally, they can. Some of them are here from LSA, some people that you know.
Yes.
Anger is a big issue. I have a firm belief is I try not to say anything when I'm angry. I may sound angry, but it's calculated. But I'm not angry when I'm doing it. Because when you're angry, you say things you don't mean. You don't think properly. You're not objective. How would you tell people to deal with that?
So
the
first thing is to don't express your anger, explain it. Right now, Rudy, I'm feeling very angry. And I know I need to pull this back down, but can I share with you why I'm feeling angry? You told me today we were meeting at 11 a.m. and I waited 4.5 hours before we actually connected. Now, in that time, I missed 3 meetings and a job offer. So I'm feeling angry. Now, I'm sharing this with you instead of blaming or expressing. So there's a big difference.
I do it a little different. I say, is there a reason I was waiting here for 4 hours? It gives them an out. There's a good reason. I was in a terrible car accident.
Yes.
You know, you can, I think that's
absolutely.
another way you can say it. Sometimes I say to people, I'm not angry, but they're calculated words. I let them know I'm not happy with them.
Yes.
And I'll say, huh? No,
You
go
can
ahead.
just hear and say, I'm feeling attacked. I'm feeling like I need to defend myself. So let's just pause. And then you'll find that the other person will acknowledge perhaps that you're feeling like that. And say, or they might going to go, what do you mean you're feeling attacked? I've done this and I've done that, and you're feeling more attacked. So it's okay to explain how you're feeling rather than express it. And it's also, it depends on who you're with and what's going on.
Right.
You know,
I just find
that.
Yeah, I find you don't get anywhere yelling at people because they will shut down. So you need to bring them in, explain to them why what they did wasn't well. And sometimes you just get angry because you vent it. So I advise people vent with somebody else. Get out of your system. But when it's time to go into that meeting, go in there calm and well thought out how you're going to do it.
I totally agree with you. So you need to think about it. And, if you've been a parent of teenagers, you understand the need to express your anger because it does go on and on at times.
Oh, yeah.
This depends on the situation. But yes, I do agree. Explain how you're feeling rather than expressing it.
Exactly. No, exactly. Well, Monica, I want to thank you for appearing. It's been to me, it's just been a delight and just an extreme pleasure to have you here. And I know my guests are thrilled too. I am going to sign off on LinkedIn. To my audience and LinkedIn, thank you for coming. We're going to sign off now. We are going to stay on Zoom, and I will stop the recording. Thank you, everyone on Zoom, for appearing.